At number 10 spot, we have the Tulsa Hex House. Located on 10 East 21st Street in Oklahoma is the remnants of a home that was once a horror house. The owner of the home during the 1940s was a 45-year-old woman named Carolyn Smith. However, she wouldn't be the only resident in the home, as she would keep two other women there as quote-unquote slaves. These two women were named Virginia Evans and Willetta Horner, who were 30 and 31 years old at the time. They claim that they were being hexed by Corlin and were basically forced to give their paychecks directly to her, with their big reward coming when they arrived in the gates of heaven. Basically, Corlin would keep these two women in her basement and live off their checks. But that wasn't all. She would also receive aid from one of her slaves' parents, in which she received a total of $20,000 for nursing care. After the two women were suspected of missing, a police investigation eventually found them in prison in the home's basement, living in the worst conditions, and this was during a 7-year span. Corlin will only get subjected to 1 year in prison, and the house was demolished with a parking lot built on top of it. However, some believe that the same basement is still underneath the parking lot. At a number 9 spot, we have the mysterious Shamans Portal. There is thought to be a literal portal in the sand dunes of Beaver, Oklahoma, known as Shamans Portal, or Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle to others. The legend goes that in the 1500s, there was once a Spanish explorer named Coronado who stumbled upon the sand dunes. When he entered, he was warned by all local native tribes about the dangers of exploring the dunes, especially since they would avoid this area for almost centuries. However, as like any other early settler, Coronado didn't listen and instead brought 3 other men with him to explore these dunes. Halfway through their trip, they encountered strange flashes which seemed to look like green lightning. Then 3 men accompanying him died immediately, and Coronado would write about this situation in his journal. Oklahoma State University archaeologist Dr. Mark Thatcher even spent 3 years studying the area until it was shut down by men with military credentials, which matched the description of the Men in Black. So could this place be a spot where potential UFOs could have been, or is this place in fact cursed like the natives say? At number 8 spot, we have the Satanic Purple Church. In the town of Spencer, Oklahoma, there are remains of an old church with stairs leading to a basement known as the Purple Church. Locals claim that this place was used for devil worship and forms of witchcraft and other animal sacrifices. Others even claim that when a full moon coincides with a Saturday, then Satanists will sacrifice virgins here at this church. Apart from that, before you enter, you will be met with various satanic purple pentagrams and different symbols. If you happen to stumble upon the area, don't be surprised to see animal carcasses scattered around, as they were probably used in some type of ritual. The issue about this place is that people have been chased not only by the spirits, but by real men in robes and even the local landowners. So be sure to get permission if you decide to step foot in this haunted place. At number 7 spot, we have the ghost of the Little Theater. Located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is a tiny theater which was built in 1932. Although it is very small, it was home to many performances and progressed the entertainment scene in Oklahoma. However, in the 70s and the 80s, the theater would go through many fires which halted production, and some say there were deaths in those fires that were never recorded. Then by 2004, the theater would go through disrepair and many would trespass to leave graffiti and garbage around. Eventually, the theater was fixed back up, but many who would visit claim that it wasn't the same as it used to be. Locals believe that the spirits of former workers and crew still reside inside of the building. Stage performers often report that they are sharing a stage with someone when there is no one else backstage with them. And according to a legend, a director passed away during a performance. So could it be his apparition that appears on stage, or could it just be a piece of our imagination? At a number 6 spot, with the Spook Light Road. Spook Light Road, located in the small town of Peoria, is a road in America where you are bound to encounter something you really don't want to. Specifically named East 50th Street, this stretch of road is said to have an unexplained light appearing over the sky in different shapes to different people. Some believe it's supernatural activity, while others believe UFOs. It was such a popular place during the 40s that during World War II, the US Army Corps of Engineers spent weeks in the area with the best technology, but in the end of the day, they had more questions than they had answers. This unexplained light has been debunked on different sources, with claims of a person holding a lantern or even a person on a horse holding a lantern. But from the photos, what do you guys think about this? In the hump of our list, we have the Camp Scott Girl Scout Massacre. In the year 1977, a horrific tragedy occurred at the Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma. This is when 3 Girl Scouts aged 8 to 10 were murdered by one psychopath. However, this all could have been prevented if they had listened to a message they had received prior to the killings. This is because weeks before, they had received a message saying, quote, "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls in tent 1. The camp director thought it was an elaborate joke and ended up discarding the letter. After a police investigation, they arrested local jail escapee Jean Leroy Hart, but 2 years later he was released after there was insufficient evidence. Now when people try to walk through this now abandoned camp, they claim to hear the spirits of the 3 girls murdered. However, I personally think that this isn't the worst part. It's the fact that this case was never solved, especially considering in 1989, DNA testing was conducted that showed 3 of the 5 probes matched Hart's DNA. As well, in 2022, authorities made public that DNA evidence strongly suggests Hart's involvement. Regardless, may these girls rest in peace. At a number 4 spot, we have Veterans Lake. Introducing the most haunted lake in the state of Oklahoma, the Veterans Lake. Located in the western portion of Sulphur, Oklahoma, this lake was built to honor American war veterans. However, for many years, many have claimed that this lake is possessed by a woman who had drowned in the lake while trying to save her baby. People think that if you go swimming at night, her spirit will try to grab you and drown you down with her. There has also been stories of apparitions flying over the water, and with some claiming to see the woman's face when looking down at it. People have also reported hearing a woman's voice while boating on the lake crying for aid and requesting that someone save her child from drowning. At number 3 spot, with the Stone Lion Inn. In Guthrie, Oklahoma is the infamous Stone Lion Inn. The 114-year-old inn has a pretty dark history, with some of the guests never checking out of this hotel. And by that, I mean they're still inside. Since the beginning of its construction, every single owner and visitor have reported something strange coming from this home. And this shouldn't be a surprise, because in the 1920s, this place was used as a funeral parlor. So best believe more than a few spirits have made its way to this home. Now the current owner of the home has had the property since the 1980s, and they claim that ever since they began reconstruction of the home, the quote-unquote old souls have been woken up and they make their presence known inside of this building. Guests find themselves either being tucked in bed or dragged out of it when they're all alone. When paranormal investigators came in, they found that the bathrooms had high EMF ratings, which also happens to be the spot where many people took their own lives. So if you ever want to visit the most haunted building in Oklahoma, maybe the Stone Lion Inn is your best bet. At a number 2 spot, we have the Scin Hotel. First opening in 1911, this 10-story hotel was an instant hit to many tourists and anyone looking for a nice place to stay for a night. However, once people learned about the dark history attached to this place, many will go on searching for another local hotel. This is because the Scin Hotel has been rumored to be haunted by a lady who passed away the first year it opened up. The story goes that a maid named Effie had a secret affair with the owner, Mr. Scin, but he became extremely paranoid once Effie delivered his baby. So he decided to hide Effie and lock her up in a room on the 10th floor. After days of being locked up, Effie decided to take their baby and jump off the balcony into their deaths. Ever since that tragedy, this hotel has had countless supernatural occurrences. Visitors claim to see the spirit of Effie roaming the halls at night. At a number 1 spot, we have elephant on LSD. In 1962, researchers from the University of Oklahoma injected a 7-ton bull elephant by the name of Tusco with 297 milligrams of LSD or acid. Lead researcher Jolly West was also involved in the controversial MK Ultra experiment, where they tested the use of psychedelics for brainwashing. The goal was trying to induce musk, which is the testosterone-fueled ultra rage that elephant males go into during breeding season. And 5 minutes after the elephant was injected, Tusco would fall to the ground and just start seizing. To make things worse, they injected Tusco with an additional 2,800 milligrams of promazine hydrochloride, an anti-nausea and sedative drug. After an hour of injections, Tusco would eventually pass away. The whole idea was controversial to begin with and shouldn't have ever happened. But what makes this failed experiment interesting is that acid is not supposed to be lethal to animals that size. To prove this, in 1984, a researcher from UCLA administered large doses of acid to 2 other elephants with none of them dying, making others believe that the other drugs they gave Tusco led him to his doom. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the 13 Steps to Hell. Built in 1901, the Maltby Cemetery in Woodinville, Washington is said to be one of the go-to cemeteries if you want to experience some sort of supernatural activity. The most famous legend about the cemetery is the story of the 13 Steps to Hell. And I know how that sounds. The stairs appeared to lead nowhere and descended into the ground as they are located in the center of a cemetery. They allegedly led to an underground family tomb. Even though you were only a few feet away, it was said that when you went down the stairs, you abruptly lost your ability to hear anything above you. It is said that if you turn around and face the bottom of the stairs, you could catch a glimpse of hell itself. Local lore claims that occasionally people would descend down these stairs and just never come back. Even though the steps were removed many years ago, there are still stories concerning them. At number 9 spot, we have the Caddy of Cadboro Bay. Wait, did you think we could escape the Loch Ness Monster? Cause we really can't. There's one in every single state, and for Washington, they have the Cadborosaurus Nicknam, the Caddy. It is said to be a 20-foot long serpent creature that inhabits the northern part of the west coast. It's described as having the head of a horse and the body of a very, very large eel. Eyewitnesses reports have been coming in for the past 200 years with 300 different sightings. Even the Inuit people drew this creature on their canoes in hopes they would ward it off once they entered into the water. As with all these Loch Ness monster hypes, many people claim to have found and captured it, but eventually it gets to the point when you can't even tell what's real and what's fake. At number 8 spot, we have the Black Cat of Stevens Hall. Built in 1895 in Pullman, Washington, the Stevens Hall was once praised as the quote, most famous attractive building on the campus. But once people stepped foot inside, they took back these claims. Kind of like when you meet someone who is physically attractive but has a terrible personality. This is that place. It started as a hangout spot for students at Washington State University, and here they would dance, drink, and tell stories to one another. One famous story told at the hall was Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. It was read on Halloween every single year until one year the students believed the story had come to life. Eventually, many would see sightings of a black cat inside of the Stevens Hall. Then on one Halloween, the black cat stood in front of the house's mother's door, and when the students opened the door to see what the black cat was hiding, they found that a girl had passed away, and many believed it was caused by this black cat. At a number 7 spot, we have the Iron Goat Trail. In 1893, a railroad was constructed across the Cascades of Washington. This would be great news because it would finally mean that Seattle would be connected with the Midwest and many other states. Except once trains started to use this railroad, they ran into many problems. To begin with, trains with engines on each end had to struggle up switchbacks to reach the summit. And the worst part about this place was that since it was in the mountains, snow could reach up to 25 feet high in some places, which would have hundreds of people digging out the snow in order for the train to go through. Then in February 1920, the deadliest avalanche in American history hit the railroad. It derailed trails and killing a total of 96 people in the process. And at the time, the rescue mission was nearly impossible due to the extreme weather conditions present on the mountain. Now many hikers come across the area where the accident occurred, and many find themselves leaving immediately the moment they get there. This is because some hikers have reported hearing noticeable screams coming from the tunnels, while others have spotted the apparitions of men screaming for help. All of these components make this place one of Washington State's most haunted places. At number 6 spot, we have Port Townsend, Washington. Considered to be one of America's most haunted cities, Port Townsend definitely has a dark history to back up that claim. The thing about this place is that paranormal activity isn't in a single building or two, but they say that the spirits roam freely around the town, and there's not a place in town where you won't have the chance to see a ghost. For example, the Manresa Castle located in the city was once visited by ghost adventurers, and they supposedly captured children's laughter on film, as well as feeling as though something or someone was pressing against them the whole time. Then we have the Palace Hotel, which used to be known as the Palace of Suites due to the woman who used to live there. But many visitors claim these women never left. They say a woman in blue exposes herself to guests and staff members, while the other spirits try to play pranks on the other people. In the hump of our list, we have the Maury Island incident. Weeks before the infamous Roswell accident, Red Chrisman and Harold Dahl had their own encounter that shocked many people at the time. It all started on June 24, 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold claimed to see a string of 9 shiny unidentified flying objects traveling around 1,200 miles per hour near Mount Rainier. Many people have said they have seen the UFOs flying as well. Eventually, the story would be relayed to Red Chrisman and Harold Dahl, who both claimed to have fragments from the supposed UFO. When they interviewed Harold, he would go on to say, quote, "On June 21st, 1947, in the afternoon around 2 o'clock, I was patrolling the east bay of Maury Island. I, as captain, was steering my patrol boat close to the shore of the bay of Maury Island. On board were 2 crewmen, my 50-year-old son, and his dog. As I looked up from the wheel of my boat, I noticed 6 very large donut-shaped aircraft." Eventually, the FBI started to investigate and stated this incident was a hoax. But who knows? This really wouldn't be the last time the US government was hiding UFOs. At number 4, we have the infamous Bigfoot. Yes, the hairy creature had to make its way onto this list simply because this is the state where it was first documented and popularized. To this day, this is the state where the most sightings are recorded, so it's either everyone is lying in Washington or they may actually have a Bigfoot in their woods. Bigfoot has gained worldwide attention, but for those who don't know, they're basically 7 to 8 feet tall hairy humanoids with extreme strength. To this day, the search for Bigfoot is still a mystery, and there hasn't been solid evidence to prove the general public that these beasts actually exist. But hey, if you live in Washington, you have the best chance of actually discovering one, but that outcome would probably be a lot more different than you would think. At number 3 spot, we have Tacoma Old City Hall. Serving as City Hall in the early 20th century, this 10-story clock tower is haunted by a single prankster ghost named Gus. Many don't know the origins of this ghost, but it was said that he may have been a former criminal that was held in the building's Old City Jail and even passed away there. So as I mentioned, this building served as City Hall until 1957. This was a time when the City Hall was being neglected, no maintenance, and no payments. So eventually the building was too unsafe to work in, causing everyone to be kicked out. Nowadays, visitors of the old City Hall claim that prankster ghosts have taken over the entire building. For example, Gus is known to toss objects in the air at random. He's also known to turn on lights on and off, and sometimes he would completely shatter light bulbs. At one point, the sightings were so frequent, the police believed it was a person trespassing the property. But after further investigation, it was discovered that no one was trespassing the property. At a number 2 spot, we have the Kells Irish Pub. Considered to be a family-friendly bar/restaurant, the Kells Irish Restaurant and Pub is said to be one of the most haunted eateries in the entire nation. To start, the pub is located in the Butterworth building, which was a former mortuary. So you kinda know where this story is going. This would basically mean that the entire building was used to store deceased bodies. Throughout the years, many spirituals have been brought to the Butterworth building in an attempt to initiate meaningful communication with the alleged spirits who remain there, including both a Catholic priest and a voodoo priestess. Nowadays, visitors report sightings of a ghost of a young girl dressed in a scarlet velvet dress. Others have spotted the ghost of an older man named Charlie, who would appear at random throughout the entire building. At number 1 spot, we have Mount Baker Theater. Opening up in 1927, the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham was haunted from day one. Unidentified sounds, chilly spots, strange disembodied voices, balls of light, and even the odd apparition are just a few of the stories that have been noted here. As well, many visitors have reported the ghost of a young woman named Judy. It's said that she has crushes on male visitors and will choose to usher them into their seats if she does have a crush on them. People know it's Judy when they begin to hear their name across the floor and feel as though someone is touching them on the back or their shoulders. Another spirit trapped in this place is a cat that is found in the basement of the theater. Many claim that whenever they go to the basement and they catch a glimpse of this cat, something bad is bound to happen, as with many other black cat theories. Oddly enough, Mount Baker Theater keeps a ghost light on stage during the off hours, claiming that they ward off the evil ones from the theater, but who really knows if it works like they say they do. At a number 10 spot, we have the Candy Cane Park. Located in La Grande, Oregon is the Candy Cane Park, otherwise known to locals as Hatchet Park, due to the accident that happened within the park grounds. Candy Cane Park was like any other park, apart from the fact that it followed the theme of candy canes all throughout the park. Kids love to go here due to its appearance alone, but that all changed in 1983. This was when a young woman named Dana DeMars was strolling through the park at night when all of a sudden someone came out of the woods with a hatchet and started to chop off her limbs, including an attempt to behead her. She ended up passing away from her injuries inside of the park at the young age of 21. Now locals claim that her spirit calls the park home. She would be seen on the merry-go-round, and when the children would go on it, she would spin it uncontrollably. Her presence on the merry-go-round was so noticeable by many that the city had to remove it for good in 2003. At a number 9 spot, we have the Bandage Man of Cannon Beach. Back in the 1950s and 60s, the residents of Cannon Beach were terrorized by a figure known as the Bandage Man. This person would lurk in the forest and dark roads of Cannon Beach, completely covered from head to toe with bandages, and he had a very pungent smell of rotting flesh. Over the years, many drivers in the area have reported seeing this man covered in bandages who would jump in front of their car at random before disappearing upon impact. As well, he would go after young couples that are parked at different parking spots in Cannon Beach. Story of the Bandage Man has different iterations, but the most popular one says that he is the ghost of a logger who passed away after sustaining some of the worst injuries at a sawmill. His entire body was severely cut, but on his way to the hospital, their ambulance was hit by a landslide, causing the vehicle to fall off the edge of the cliff. And when policemen arrived at the accident scene, the Bandaged Man was nowhere to be seen. At a number 8 spot, we have the McMinville UFO Sighting. On May 11th, 1950, a farming couple named Paul and Evelyn Trent claimed to have spotted a shiny metallic object that was flying directly over their home. Immediately, they decided to grab a camera and snap 2 photos of the object before it flew away to the west. Paul's dad also was a witness to the flying object. After the photos were released, it got worldwide attention almost immediately, with one side arguing that the photos were a hoax and the other side claiming that this may actually be solid evidence of a three-dimensional flying object. And just to back up their claims even more, the Trents were regarded as very honest people, and when their photos were publicized, they never even made an attempt to profit off the popularity, nor did they want to be in the limelight in the first place. And until their last breath, they would insist that the photos were genuine, but a lot of people have been able to debunk it. At a number 7 spot, we have the Lafayette Curse. Unfortunate for those living in Lafayette, but your city has been supposedly cursed since the 1800s. Don't know if you guys knew about that one. The story goes that back in the 1850s, a woman in the town was accused of witchcraft, and just before her execution, she yelled out to the crowd of people saying, quote, "The town will burn down 3 times. And since saying that, the town has burned down twice, and people are awaiting the third that has yet to come." At a number 6 spot, we have the Oregon State Hospital. Built all the way back in 1883, the building served as a psychiatric hospital in the city of Salem. It was originally named the Oregon Hospital for the Insane, but changed for obvious reasons. And in the beginning, it was a place where lobotomies, eugenics, and electroconvulsive therapy was done. However, it was estimated that 2/3 of the people in the hospital were not only mentally insane, but also were found guilty of a crime. So best believe that fights were common and death was even more prevalent. In 1942, 47 people were killed and many others were sickened when poison used to kill bugs was accidentally used in place of flour in the kitchen. But the most notorious thing about this place is that they found the remains of 3,600 people in a room now known as the Room of the Forgotten Souls. They found cans upon cans of cremated ashes in the basement of this hospital. In the hump of our list, we have the AGR Pelter. The AGR Pelter is an aggressive creature said to lurk in the forests of Oregon, and they are most likely responsible for the deaths of many early lumberjacks in Oregon. These creatures resemble a slender ape-like animal with whip-like arms that extend for meters. They lurk atop trees and only attack if their territory is being threatened. So when Oregon was first being inhabited by early settlers, they began to start cutting down the trees for space, and then the AGR Pelter would just hurl rocks and sharp sticks at them, causing many of them to pass away or even leave the land altogether. And when people tried to fight back, they would use their long arms and agility to escape pretty easily through the trees. And in more recent times, they haven't gone after humans, but instead has a diet consisting of owls and woodpeckers. And as those populations have been dying over the recent years, the AGR Pelter will forever remain a mystery if they ever truly existed. At number 4 spot, we have the Shanghai Tunnels. Beneath Portland's very own Chinatown is a tunnel known as the Shanghai Tunnels. Now, they're completely closed off to the public, but back in the day, it consisted of small rooms that connected to one another, which made smuggling very easy at the time. As the tunnel was being used for more and more illegal activities, it eventually was a place where kidnappings and even murders were done. The term Shanghaiing or crimping came from these tunnels, which was basically when people would kidnap men and then sell them as slaves to ship captains that needed crewmates. These Shanghaiers would wait for people to leave local bars and taverns and then bait them directly into these tunnels and straight to the docks. There are tours to enter in some of the parts of the tunnels today, but visitors feel like they're being watched the entire time they're down there. Many of them report to see an Asian man walking past them in the tunnels as well, who is not a part of their group. And some even hear the voice calling out the name Sam coming from the tunnels. And if you do go, just be prepared to experience complete darkness. So just try not to hallucinate too much. At our number 3 spot, we have the Mtima Falls. Located in Columbia River Gorge, Oregon, is the beautiful waterfall that brings an estimated 2.5 million visitors yearly. However, the more people that go there, the more that come out saying that this place is more haunted than people realize. So before this bridge was constructed, there was an old Native American legend that tells us of a maiden that leapt to her death from the upper falls in order to save her village from sickness. And no, the story doesn't specify why jumping off the cliff would save her village from sickness, but hey, maybe she had a sickness and didn't want to give anyone else it, so she just committed like that. Regardless, ever since the construction of the bridge, visitors claim to see her face appear to those standing on top of the bridge looking down at the water below. As well, every winter it's said that she appears at the upper falls as if she's ready to make the sacrifice for her village again. At number 2 spot, we have Polybius. Polybius is one of gaming's first urban legends and still terrifies people to this day regarding whether or not a game this dangerous could exist out there. In Portland 1981, games are on the rise, This was a time when gaming fever was a thing and many games would be thrown left and right in these arcades packed with children. The government saw this as an opportunity to test out one of their own experiments. This is when they made a game so addictive and so brainwashing that it would cause severe side effects in those who decide to play it. The only details that were definite was that it was named Polybius. The severe side effects of the game included mind control, seizures, brain aneurysms, and for some, it would cause them to take their own life. Despite all these warnings, Polybius looked like any regular arcade game, but due to its addictive capabilities, people were lining up for this game in the hundreds, unaware of the true effects it was having on their minds. Eventually, the game would disappear out of nowhere as if it never really existed, and the mystery of Polybius will just keep living on. At a number 1 spot, we have D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper is one of the most infamous criminals in aviation history. On November 24, 1971, a nondescript man calling himself Dan Cooper brought a one-way ticket on flight 305 from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. At 3 p.m., Cooper handed a flight receptionist a note stating that he had a bomb. Soon, Cooper gave the captain of the plane a note demanding 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills. When the flight landed in Seattle, the hijacker exchanged the flight's 36 passengers for the money and the parachutes. Cooper kept several crew members on board and the plane took off again, ordered to set a course for New Mexico. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, a little after 8 p.m., the hijacker did the incredible. He jumped out the back of the plane with the parachute and some of the ransom money. And fortunately, the pilots landed safely, but Cooper just disappeared completely. 51 years later, and the FBI still don't know what happened to this man. And this will be the greatest mystery in aviation history. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the Devil's Tower. This brick tower was built in 1910 by millionaire sugar importer Manuel Rionda. He claims he built it for his late wife, Harriet Rionda, in order to give her a better view of the skyline. However, nowadays many believe his wife's spirit is stuck inside of the tower. According to the local legend, Harriet spotted Manuel with another woman one day, and despite the fact that she may have suspected cheating for over years, she still went off to the tower and took her own life out of grief. Since her alleged suicide, there has been several stories of hauntings, including accounts from persons who claim they were propelled by an eerie force. After all these tragedies, the tower was eventually named into the Devil's Tower, and I could say this name fits pretty well. At a number 9 spot, we have the Jersey Devil. Did you know that the mascot of the NHL team, New Jersey Devils, is based on a real creature that used to terrorize the state for years? Yeah. They are described as kangaroo-like creatures with the face of a horse, the head of a dog, and bat-like wings, horns, and tails. Sightings have occurred for the past 200 years, and it all started when a resident of Estiville was going to give birth for the 13th time, which she didn't plan for. So in disgust, she yelled out, quote, "Let it be the devil," and when it came out, it actually turned out to be a baby devil who ended up screeching before flying out the window, and that is now known as the New Jersey Devil. And I know that story might sound a bit crazy, but regardless, during the years, New Jersey has had unidentified creatures raiding chicken coops and killing livestock. At number 8 spot, we have the Watcher. This story has been made into a full-length show, but the fact that it was a true story makes it that much creepier. Located in Westfield, New Jersey at 657 Boulevard is the infamous Watcher House. It all started when a young couple named Derek and Maria Broadus bought the home back in 2014. The house is pretty old to begin with, so they immediately began renovations to make it into their dream home. However, shortly after they were official owners of the home, they would receive several letters from a person only known as the Watcher. The first letter read, quote, "657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out." Eventually, the couple would get more and more letters to the point when the police needed to be involved. And when they finally sold the home, they never really uncovered who the Watcher truly was. At number 7 spot, we have the Hindenburg Hanger. On May 6, 1937, a German passenger airship known as the LZ-129 Hindenburg was engulfed in flames and destroyed in an attempt to dock with its mooring mast at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station. Inside the airship was 97 people, and after the fire consumed the hangar, there were a total of 35 fatalities. This news eventually broke out and would immediately mark the end of the airship era. And even though the accident occurred almost 90 years ago, it's said that the air station is haunted by the ghosts of the former passengers of the Hindenburg. More specifically, this supernatural activity is mostly found inside of Hangar 1 or the Hindenburg Hanger. Here some visitors claim to smell the scent of burning flesh, as if the fire accident is happening all over again. Overnight workers of the air station also claim to hear someone walking inside of the hangar when it's confirmed that no one else is there. They usually leave the hangar alone due to these reasons, but regardless, that hangar has a very bad vibe to it, and I wouldn't be surprised that it's somewhat cursed in some way. At number 6 spot, we have Clinton Road. First of all, this is probably the only road in the US where I read that many haunting experiences where I wouldn't even want to consider driving on this road at all. I'm not even lying. This road went through it all. Satanic rituals, UFOs, mythical creatures, ghostly Camaros, and even hate groups. After all of this history, it makes sense why many people consider this to be the most haunted road in the United States. However, the most infamous story about this road has to be the Ghost Boy Bridge. So apparently, if you place a quarter in the middle of the road at midnight, where the yellow line is at one of the bridges over Clinton Brook, otherwise known as the Dead Man's Curve, shortly after, the ghost of a boy will appear right in front of you. Story goes that this is a boy who drowned in the river nearby, and if he appears in front of you, he may push you near to the bridge where he was murdered on. In the hump of our list, we have the Shades of Death Road. Located in Warren County, this is yet another terrifying road to travel on in New Jersey. You're really better off taking a boat in this state, I swear. It's a 2-lane rural road that is around 7 miles in length. Legend of the road tells us of a time many years ago when a car full of teenagers were driving down this road to get to their prom. However, the road was extremely slippery that night, and when the car took a sharp turn, the car lost control and fell into a ditch, killing every single teenager in the vehicle. Nowadays, if you find that this road is very slippery, especially during a rainstorm, chances are you may catch a glimpse of one of the girl teenagers still wearing her prom dress. And some have even picked her up only to find that she disappears out of nowhere before arriving at her destination. The forest around this road has also been the site of many grisly murders and disappearances, and after many countless reports, this street was eventually given the name Death. At a number 4 spot, we have the Pines Barrens. Over 1 million acres and 7 counties in New Jersey make up the densely forested Pine Barrens. During the colonial era, the region was home to numerous enterprises, including paper mills and even sawmills. When coal was eventually discovered to the west in Pennsylvania, people eventually left the mills and neighboring communities, leaving behind ghost towns and some claim a few paranormal wanderers. The Jersey Devil is without a doubt the most well-known inhabitant of the Pine Barrens. The monster, which had leathery wings and hooves, was said to have been Deborah Lee's 14th child and born in 1735. Since then, has been terrorizing South Jersey homeowners and killing cattle after flying up the Lee's chimney and into the Pine Barrens. Eventually, a bounty was out for the devil, but no one was able to capture it, and has since remained a mystery ever since. At a number 3 spot, we have the Flanders Hotel. Alongside Jersey Shore is the infamous Flanders Hotel on 11th and Boardwalk in Ocean City. This hotel was first completed in 1923, and after its opening, it immediately became very famous among tourists and locals alike. I mean, it had property alongside the boardwalk and was very modern compared to the other hotels in the time. However, as the guests started to pile up at this hotel, many would be leaving with an experience they didn't expect. It was found that there was hundreds of reports claiming that the hotel had supernatural activity within it. However, the most common story is that of a ghost of a young woman looking for something in the hotel. Many people claim to see this woman in white wearing a wedding gown who always seemed to be looking for something on the floor. The story goes that this woman was named Emily, and during World War I, her husband never ended up returning. So it's said that her spirit is still at the hotel in hopes that her husband will finally return and she will find the ring that he was going to give her. At a number 2 spot, we have the Cave Grave. In the town of Newton lies a quiet small graveyard situated alongside Route 621. Though the majority of the stones from the 19th and 20th century are upright limestone or granite, there is one memorial that is quite unique from the rest. It is a headstone located about 50 yards outside the cemetery's boundaries, which actually closes the entrance to a cave. Inscribed on the stone are the names of James, Margaret, and J. Howard Lewis, and the year 1909. Story goes that all 3 of these people were young children when they passed away. It all started when Margaret went into the cave and eventually got lost. So the boys decided to go in as well to save their sister, but they would meet the same type of fate and disappear into the cave's abyss. After several rescue missions were done, the bodies of the children were just never found. Many cave explorers claim that the cave has some of the most supernatural activity within it. Many people claim to hear the voices of these children, while others claim that Margaret is haunting the cave by appearing to explorers in her dirty dress. All the way at a number 1 spot, we have the Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. Trenton Psychiatric Hospital, originally named New Jersey State Lunatic Asylum, has a long history of helping mentally ill patients and even harming them. The hospital opened in 1848 and welcomed 86 patients. The first superintendent, Horace, was a good man and provided excellent care for all the people in his custody. Then it took a turn for the worse when Dr. Henry Cotton took over. The doctor believed he could cure mental illness by removing organs. He believed that infections cause mental illness, so he tested it by removing his patient's teeth, limbs, or any body part with slight signs of infection. This would cause dozens of patients to pass away, and many claim that you can hear the screams of his patients inside of the walls of the hospital to this day. Others even claim to see the apparition of Dr. Cotton himself and other ghosts with missing limbs. Unfortunately, after his passing in 1933, a review found his medical procedures caused 45% of his patients to perish. The irony was, the doctor was clinically insane as well. At number 10 spot, we have the Scin Tom. This is a well-known one across the entire state, so I apologize in advance if I don't do the story justice. But somewhere in Wallen, Tennessee, a young man named Tom was living a very privileged life by many of our standards. He was a very good-looking person, he was funny, and very intellectual. Basically, a giga-chat. Being like this, he attracted many partners, but after every single one, he was just never satisfied. It wasn't until he met a girl from the town over where his whole perspective changed. He admired her beauty over anything and became enticed immediately. But there was one thing he didn't consider. She was already married. And Tom being Tom, he still went after the girl. Eventually, the lady's husband will become aware of this affair and decide to track down Tom to get his ultimate revenge. So one day he followed his wife to Lover's Lane as she was meeting up with Tom. And when the two hugged, the husband came out of nowhere and grabbed Tom from the vehicle and carried him into the woods. When the cops arrived, they found a full suit of human skin hanging from a tree. Now if you go to Lover's Lane, you may catch a glimpse of Tom's horrific skinned body, but that's only if you're unfaithful. At number 9 spot, we have the Pine Haven School. Somewhere in Jamestown, Tennessee, there's an abandoned all-boys school that was the site of many horrific things back in the day. The legend of the school goes that a group of bullies were bugging and taunting another classmate inside of the bathroom. At first, they were just shoving him around and calling him names, but the abuse just didn't stop there and only proceeded to get worse. It was then one of the boys stuck behind him and pushed him straight into the bathroom mirror. After coming into contact with the mirror, he immediately shattered it, causing a shard of glass to cut his neck, killing him within minutes. In an attempt to cover up their actions, they decided to put the body underneath the floor beds underneath the sink of the bathroom. And after that incident, the bullies were caught, but the students of the school said that the boy's spirit never left the bathroom. There were many claims saying that if you went into this boy's bathroom and looked into one of the mirrors, you may catch a glimpse of his bloody apparition staring behind you. In some accounts, people claim to be pushed by an unseeable force when looking into this mirror. But it all doesn't matter now, since the school was abandoned in the 90s. At number 8 spot, with the Flintville Monster. During the 1970s, a creature described to look like Bigfoot was terrorizing the people of Flintville, Tennessee. The monster would come out of the forest and begin to slaughter people's livestock, abduct children, and even go after and attack people's vehicles. The first sighting was in April 1976 when a woman decided to call the cops and report that a 7 to 8 feet tall hairy creature had come out of the forest, came straight to her car, pulled the radio antennas off of them, and then proceeded to jump on top of the roof of her car. This story would kickstart the legend of the Flintville Monster, and many people would come out to report their own experiences with this creature. At number 7 spot, with the Chickamauga Battlefield. The second bloodiest battle in the Civil War happened in southeastern Tennessee. This battle started in September 1863, and by the end of it, there were more than 34,000 lives lost, and many of the injured Union soldiers were left on the field for weeks, only to be buried into unmarked graves by their enemies. The sight of restless souls is why many believe that they still linger on the battlefield, awaiting another potential conflict. One of the spirits found on the battlefield is the Lady in White. Many see her floating across the field, looking down as if she's looking for her husband who passed away during the war. However, the most infamous ghost found on the premises is known as Green Eyes. Locals believe that only his head was found in the rubble, and when they looked at it, they immediately noticed his piercing green eyes. Ever since they discovered his remains, he has appeared to people walking on the battlefield. This is either in the form of a headless man or a half man, half beast with sharp fangs and notorious green eyes. At number 6 spot, we have the Spearfinger. In the mountains of Tennessee, the Cherokee tribe told a story that haunted people for generations. It was said that a vampiric humanoid would walk along the nearby river and creeks looking for children. They would do this by shape-shifting themselves as an innocent, fragile old woman, and when the children began to trust them even a little bit, they would use their spear-like finger to stab directly through the child's heart. Yeah, I know, pretty brutal. From here, they would consume their favorite part of the body, which is the liver. But apart from their tendencies to hunt, they're also said to have the power to control any stone, no matter the size. This creature could fuse two stones together just by using its mind, and could even place large boulders above their victims with ease in order to completely squish them to death. Eventually, a great council was created to put an end to the Spearfinger. Once they trapped the creature, they noticed that arrows and knives did nothing to their stone skin. It wasn't until a bird landed on the creature's right hand when they began to notice that she carried her heart there. They began to direct their aim towards her hand, which eventually ended up killing it, ending the curse of Spearfinger for good. In the hump for our list, we have the Tennessee State Prison. Built in 1898, this castle-looking prison was open for almost an entire century, and during its time, it housed many of America's most notorious criminals. It was a maximum security facility, but it was also notorious for their poor living conditions and their constant riots. For example, in 1902, a group of 17 prisoners would break out of their cells and start a riot within the jail, with one of the prisoners being murdered and 2 of the 17 prisoners actually escaping. Then in 1939, another jailbreak occurred with the prisoners setting fire to some areas of the prison, including the dining room, which ended up killing a few more of the workers and other prisoners. Then during the years 1975 to 1985, there were countless other riots and jailbreaks within the prison. People who have previously visited the old Tennessee State Prison have described what they think to be the sounds of cell bars clanking, spine-chilling cries, and footsteps that seem to echo throughout the halls when no one else is there. Eventually, the prison would be abandoned in 1992 due to its inhumane conditions and the fact that the building was completely unstable. At number 4 spot, we have the Shiloh National Park. With another Civil War battlefield on this list, we have the Shiloh National Park. This place is located in southwestern Tennessee, and many locals claim that the spirits of the soldiers still occupy the grounds. The Battle of Shiloh occurred in 1862, which had a total of 100,000 American soldiers with over 20,000 casualties. After the years following the war, many visitors to the national park claim that this place is one of the most haunted places in the state. This is because some say that when they're in an isolated part of the field, they hear war drums and the sounds of muskets firing in the distance. Some even claim that the nearby pond randomly turns red, symbolizing the blood of the men who passed away there. In the cemetery nearby, it holds as many as 3,500 Civil War soldiers, with over 2,000 of them being unnamed. After that many deaths in one certain place, it's really no surprise that there's something supernatural happening. At number 3 spot, we have the Orum Theater. Built in 1928, the Orum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee has been the stage for performers and audiences to this day. As years went by, many watchers report small bits of supernatural activity, ranging from being tapped on the shoulders by unseeable forces to being whispered from underneath their seats. So as the reports started to pile up, psychics and other paranormal investigators decided to investigate the theater. After their findings, they concluded that there were at least 7 spirits that made the place their home. The most famous out of the 7 is a woman named Mary. Story goes that in 1921, there was another building standing on the grounds of the Orum Theater, which was named the Grand Opera House. Here, 12-year-old Mary passed away right in front of the house after being caught in a hit-and-run accident. Now she is spotted by the majority of visitors, notorious for wearing old-fashioned clothing and dancing around the theater when someone is performing. At number 2 spot, with the ghostly bride of Rotherwood Mansion. Frederick Ross, the town's founder, is also the owner of the Rotherford Mansion in Kingsport. Ever since moving into the mansion, his daughter Rowena lived a very miserable life, losing both her first husband to yellow fever and then her second husband on the day of their wedding. She eventually had a daughter after her 3rd marriage, but as time went by, her daughter too would pass away. Rowena was overpowered by her sadness and ultimately committed suicide. It is thought that she now haunts the estate. The ghost is now known as the Ghost Bride because it is thought to wear all white clothing walking around the grounds. At number 1 spot, with the Bell Witch Cave. This one literally has the word witch in its name, so you know there's probably nothing good about it. According to the legend of the Bell Witch, in 1804, a farmer named John Bell moved his wife and his kids to a farm along the Red River in northern Robertson County. The property also included a cave, which became known as the Bell Witch Cave, believed to be haunted by the spirit of a witch named Kate Batts. This woman felt she was cheated by the Bells in the land purchase and had ever since carried a strong dislike for the Bell family. Then when John Bell passed away under suspicious circumstances, people believed it to be the witch who was supposedly hiding in that very cave. Well, these are the top 10 Tennessee scary urban legends. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. But don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for some more content. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.